Well, hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to 9 Minute Monday. So glad you guys are here today. Hey, I'm on location. I'm hanging out in Chesapeake, Virginia with an amazing church here talking about staff development, culture, organizational leadership, all those fun things that you all know I love talking about. And forgive me because I'm having to hold the camera, so that's gonna make you all a little bit dizzy because I forgot to bring my tripod. So just real life, right? This is real life on the road doing my thing. So thanks for tuning in today, and we would love for you to share 9 Minute Monday with your friends. Let them know what we're doing every week, because we want to just equip you with great leadership resources that help you lead from your extraordinary best. So my heart and passion is helping us lead well so we can lead others better, and that's the heart and the spirit. So today I want to take a couple minutes and talk about priorities. Anybody have trouble with priorities? Like, let's be honest, right? There are so many things coming at us, so much we're navigating, that priorities can be a challenge. And I think for us, particularly as leaders, we're constantly fighting to figure out how do we set the right priorities? How do we make sure we're really focused on the right things? And there was a story that came to mind of one of those moments where I realized, I think I got this right in this season. I get it wrong a lot of times. But a couple years ago, actually a number of years ago, it was about this time, about 2 weeks ahead of Easter. So for those of you in church ministry, you'll really connect with this one, because it's 2 weeks before Easter. I'm working full-time on a church staff, and I was not going like crazy. Like, the rest of my team was running around doing all the things to prepare for a zillion Easter services, and I was not in the same frenzy that the rest of my team was in. And I immediately felt guilty. Like, I immediately was worried about, gosh, what am I missing? What am I not taking care of? What am I not attending to? And immediately just a ton of guilt kind of settled in, because I was thinking, I must be missing something. The rest of my team is running like crazy. Why am I not running like crazy? And what I actually discovered is that it was just right. Because months before, I had been in the frenzy of getting building remodeled and getting us staffed appropriately and all the things, preparing for Easter that I needed to do about 6 months ahead of time. And what I realized in that moment and in that story was that for us as leaders, for us as leaders, we have to be out ahead of our teams. Our priorities are different from many of our staff teams' priorities. And so that realization that my priorities and the urgency of my priorities is going to be different than the rest of my team. And that's actually good. It's actually okay. But I've got to learn to live into the rhythms, and that my rhythms as a leader might be different than the rest of my staff. And so I want to give you a couple things to be thinking about as it relates to priorities, because I think a lot of times we get ourselves in trouble that we feel and we live in the urgency. Can anybody relate to that? Right? We live in the urgency of what's right in front of us, what needs attention right now, what's the crisis that is just in front of us. And we miss or we're not intentional to set the priorities that help us actually get ahead and help prepare our teams for success. Because one of the reasons why this is so important is that if you're not out ahead kind of preparing the way for your team, you're not gonna have served them in the way that you best could. Right? In that if I hadn't have done the things 6 months ahead of Easter to prepare our facilities and to prepare our staffing and some of the different bigger picture infrastructure things for Easter, my team would have not been able to do the things that they were doing for the zillion Easter services that were coming up. And so as a leader, we've got to learn to really get ahead and to think ahead and to not be bound by the urgent. So here are some ways that you can do that. You need to be intentionally defining your annual goals, your quarterly goals, your weekly goals, and your daily goals. If you don't have a rhythm and a practice for this, I want you to right now get your calendar out and go, you know what? Maybe you didn't do goals at the beginning of the calendar year. I want you to stop, and I want you to set some goals for between now and the end of the year, right? To really look at what are the things that I want to be true when I get to the end of 2018. What are the things that I want our team to have accomplished by the time we get to the end of this year? And then, yes, Shalane, the tyranny of the urgent. I mean, we live in that, and our world kind of perpetuates it. So we've got to fight that tyranny of the urgent, and the only way to do that is to get out ahead of things. So what do you want to be true by the time you get to the end of 2018? And then back that up and say, okay, what does that mean for the next 3 months? What do I need to do for the next 3 months that will help me work towards that goal? So you're just backing it out and you're giving yourself bite-sized chunks. Then you're saying, okay, what does that mean for this week? What are the 2 or 3 things that I need to do this week that will help me have movement towards that goal? And then finally, every day when you wake up, what are the 1 or 2 most important things that I need to accomplish that are going to help me move towards this goal? And I promise you, if you start your days with that perspective, if you start with your priorities, it is going to totally shift how you spend your time and what takes over. Email is not urgent. A lot of us just get sucked into email. Like you get up in the morning and you just jump into email. Email is not urgent. Now, it's important, and there's probably some really important information. There's some urgency to you need to get back to people who have responded to you, but you need to define when is that going to show up in your calendar, and when are you going to tackle it, and where does it fall in relationship to your other priorities? Because again, if you're responding to what is urgently coming at you, you're responding to everybody else's demands on your time and attention rather than setting those and really defining what is most important for you, okay? Another way to look at this is to decide what do you need to do, decide who you need to do it with, like who on your team do you need to spend time with, who on your team do you need to develop and do you need to support, and then you need to decide when you're going to do those things. And if you can really look at your work and structure your life in that way, you're going to have set your priorities and you're going to have much more control. You're going to not be living in the urgent as much, and you're going to be living in the important. And that is so critical for us to succeed as leaders and for us to get ahead for our teams. Now, I told you the example of the Easter situation where I realized, oh my gosh, I'm out ahead. I feel like I'm not being productive this week, but actually I needed to be further ahead and thinking about the rest of the year. And so the same is true for you, and you've got to define what that looks like for your team because all of you have different scales and levels of responsibility. But what does it look like for you to be out ahead of your team? And my rule of thumb to you would be you need to be 3 to 6 months ahead of your team. If your team right now is living in this next month of Easter planning and Easter, after Easter follow-up, or, for those of you maybe in the corporate world, maybe tax season, or there's different things in this quarter that are really critical for your organization, whatever that is, and your staff are living in the immediate of it, you need to be 3 to 6 months out ahead of that, anticipating what's coming, how do I need to get us prepared. So that's a good rule of thumb, is that as a leader, you've always got to have the majority of your time focused 3 to 6 months out ahead of your team. And so live with that this week. Define your goals for the rest of the year. Back those into quarterly goals, back those into weekly goals, and then make a discipline of every morning when you get up, focusing on what are your 2 most important goals for the day. And then keep in mind, what do I need to do? Who do I need to invest in? And when do I need to do those things? And that's going to help you set the priorities that are going to help you succeed as a leader. So I hope this was helpful. Sorry that I'm holding the camera and I'm totally making you dizzy, so forgive me for that. And please share, pass it on, send us your questions, and we'll see you next week for 9 Minute Monday. Thanks, guys.